What if the key to unlocking your most fulfilling intimate life has nothing to do with techniques or partners, but everything to do with intuition? Today's guest works with celebrities and CEOs to access a hidden power source that's completely transformed their relationships, and she's about to reveal her most controversial approach that made her latest book too radical for the traditional publishers.
Tune in, turn on, and fall in love with Avalaura.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined Podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
Welcome, Avalaura. We are so excited to have you here.
And we're just going to jump right into it. I would love to start with talking about your book.
Yeah. Why this book was like, the publishers were like, we're not published with that. We want the
first
juice.
of all, the title, Girl, Live Your Effing Life. It's so interesting how it provokes a certain something, right? Like, so people who get it, they get it. They're like, oh my God, girl, yes, I love it. And then you kind of have like the church crew. They're like, oh my God, the language, you know? And I'm like, it's about self-love, right? It's about self-care.
Right.
It's about saying, F everybody else. It's finally my time to take care of me. And what could be so wrong with that?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah.
So what is the argument? I mean, aside from sort of the F word being spelled differently in the title.
I think sadly, women owning their power, right? Women saying that enough already. Yes, you're important to me. I have all of these roles. I'm mother, I'm wife, I'm, businesswoman, caretaker, whatever it is. I'm finally going to put myself first because I am the most important thing. Because if I don't put me first, all these other things sink, right? All these other things fail. I think sadly now that's still a very revolutionary thing for women to say, I have to take care of me first.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to have the voice to even express, first of all, the knowing that that needs to happen, and then to be able to express to community, loved ones, family members, that I'm actually going to put you down. I'm not going to take care of you for the next 3 hours. I'm going to go take care of myself.
Or even the next 20 minutes. I mean, for a lot
How
of
about
women,
that?
they don't have the luxury of taking 3 hours. It's like, can I just go to the bathroom by myself and not be needed, wanted, grasped on, expected of, obligated to? And I think, because I'm curious what you would say to this, if this resonates with you, if you're seeing this, Avalaura. My take is that women have so much more responsibility in everyday life. Not only is it tending to the home and in some cases having the children and still wanting to have a happy marriage in many instances, but it's also being a provider. And it's being the researcher. It's making sure everyone is getting to do those sports that they want to do or have those extracurricular activities and maintaining that calendar and planning and doing all the research when it comes to a vacation and cleaning the whole house. And their partner still
Basically
wants them
everything.
to like sex. I mean, it's like all these things. And we want those things for ourselves too. We also enjoy being very accomplished in business and having a family that we hope are thriving, but we're still managing all the crises. So we are worn out. We are tapped out. And it's kind of like, what does the world expect of us when we are running the universe? And I think that's why self-care has been such a big buzzword for the past, I would say, what, you guys, 5, 8, 10 years? Is it
Probably
been that long?
over a decade. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say.
It's interesting. COVID really just, blew up self-care.
Highlighted.
But, in my circles in mental health, right, we've been talking about self-care for years.
Right. Because it's kind of like, the classic metaphor of being on the airplane and you got to put the oxygen
Absolutely.
on before you put it on somebody else. I think we're seeing that our quality of life and our mood and our feeling of enjoying being alive has been greatly diminished when we are overburdened. And I think if we were to keep this sort of in the romance sector and the sexuality sector, if we set aside all of the demands of having a family, where it really affects women by and large is their ability to feel juicy, is their ability to be attracted to their partner. is their ability to have orgasms. It's like when you're tired and stressed out, that cortisol, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Willow, that cortisol like robs you of your libido. It kind of like suppresses your desire. And then
It
depression, anxiety sets in, and then you have a hard time feeling any desire for any other part of your life.
Yeah, absolutely it does. And the fastest solution is to flood your body with some oxytocin. And the quickest way to that is an orgasm. So it's kind of like it can become this sort of like downward spiral when we're in that stressed out. What we're doing really from a Chinese medicine perspective is we're running at such a yang state all the time. So a sympathetic dominant nervous system where we're constantly like we can't, even if we have a moment to relax, we can't. Like we're just too wound up. So we're depleting our yin, right? And so our yin is our juiciness. It's that fluidity. It's that watery. It's that relaxation and that allowing. And one of the things Leah and I are always saying is like really epic sexual energy is born from that yin tide, from that deep relaxation. Avalaura, I'm so curious. You have been working with people who run at yang dominant nervous systems for a while. And I'm just so curious, like, what's the biggest hurdle that you have to kind of get them through to get them to that yin place within?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's real because if you think about women who are type A, who are high achievers, they are running on that yang energy, right? And they don't know how to do that in a yin way because we've never been taught. Like, you don't know how to run a corporation to be a CEO or be successful in politics or in corporate with yin energy, right?
Right.
Because yin says, you can flow, you can be emotional, you can cry when you need to, you can take the space. It's a safe space, right? And corporate is not safe. Being a CEO is not safe. And so when you're running on that energy, as a way of earning money, right? The majority of your time, if you think about how much time you spend working, it's very hard to come home and then shift that. And so, okay, you know what? I've been yang all day. Now I can be yang.
Right.
You don't know
Right.
how to do that, right?
Right.
Because this is what you've been doing all day. This is how you have been trained. This is this is your go-to. And so even if you actively say, I want to live that soft life, right? I want to be more feminine. You don't know how to physically do it because you haven't been in a position where you could do it. And if you are in a relationship, you don't necessarily have a partner who's used to supporting you in your feminine, right? Because they're still used to you doing everything.
Right,
So,
right. They're like, go ahead and yang out, honey, and
right,
then
like if
spread
your
your leg.
household depends on it, right? And I don't
Yeah.
want to do the dishes and I don't want to do all this stuff. And I know that you're good at doing all of this and planning. I'm gonna let you do your thing. But then, like you said, of course, but now you want me to turn it on and off and, or turn it off in the bedroom. You can't have it both ways. So if you're going to support me in this, it has to be in the household and running things so that, now I can be what you want and what you desire. And I have the energy to do that.
Right.
Because
That's
really
the
what it
ticket.
is I don't have the energy.
Right.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
you're right. I think there isn't like a lot of language for this. We're not taught how to transition from one polarity to the next, and because we want to be competitive in the workforce, because we also need that promotion. We also want that success. Here's the model of how you do that. Most of us do it from our masculine, having that, bringing things into form and having drive and being active and like conquering and smashing goals. A lot of that does take at least the model that we have so far.
The model that we
shows
have.
us that the way to success is by behaving, acting, and contributing in a specific, usually male-dominated way. And then we don't have a model that says, here's how you transition into the feminine. Because I think even our partners, if we're in a heterosexual relationship, let's say, and this may also very easily be interchangeable in same-sex relationship, what our language may change for it, is that our partners also don't know that the longing that they have has to do with also wanting our partner to transition. We're happy that they're also smashing the goals that they want and are very competent and help our world be better and more efficient, but there's still a longing there. It's like everyone's missing that yin essence. Everyone is craving more of that flow inside of our partner, and we don't know how to inspire that. If we can start to make the bridge that one of the ways to inspire it is actually help out.
Yeah.
Do the dishes, give the kids a bath, put them to bed, that we become, but that also requires a more egalitarian type of partnership, which then sometimes
Absolutely.
I think can frustrate a vulva owner who wants their partner to stay in their masculine, right? Who still wants that polarity and that sexual charge. If we're both doing both jobs of feminine and masculine, we tend to neutralize each other sexually. It's like we lose some of that sexual charge. This is actually a very complex topic, and I'm sitting here going, I'm sure you, like Willow and I, have these kinds of conversations around masculine and feminine polarity and how to have more charge with our partners. But I think this is actually one of the biggest issues, is how do we polarize each other so we can capitalize on that sexual magnetism and tension, but still run our lives, still negotiate all the things that have to get done. Is this a conversation you're having, Avalaura, in your circles?
Yeah,
Does this
definitely.
arise in your work?
A lot of it is a mental shift. We talk a lot about mindset, right? And I talk a lot about ego versus spirit and, understanding where you're operating from so you can come to that space where you can operate from your spirit, which for women is really our feminine self. Our spirit is whispering to us. It's not loud. Our ego is loud and yelling and, telling us what should be done and all the negative. And our spirit is flow and power and really soft and magnetic. And the reality is, for many of us, for women, we don't know where we're operating from. We think our ego is our spirit, and we think our spirit is our ego. So we don't even know where we're getting our drive and where we're making our decisions from, right? So there's so many shifts that have to be made internally. And so when you were just saying that, and I'm thinking about, my partner, I love when he cooks dinner for me. I love when he's helping the girls with their homework. Oh my God, that's sexy to me.
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
That is not, making it, that is not demasculating him whatsoever. Because
Right.
now I see that as him being the leader of his household. But for some men, that is demasculating. And for some women, that is like, oh, that's a little soft. I should be doing that. Not for me, baby. Go ahead on and do it. I will sit back here and enjoy.
Yeah,
Well, but
actually,
I
I think you
think-
make a very good point with that. Yeah, I think
And
most women are like, nothing
Yeah.
sexier than watching a dad be a good dad,
A relief. Yeah, exactly. A little bit of help goes a long way in any situation.
Absolutely.
So
and
how do
part
you
of
work?
it, oh, and I was about to
Go
say,
ahead.
part of it too is just, again, us thinking about things differently, not the way we grew up and not what our parents modeled for us or what we've seen modeled, but, how can I be more efficient? So I had a client and I was talking to her. She has a very demanding job. She doesn't have a lot of time. Sometimes she, her schedule shifts and she doesn't know when it's going to shift. And she's talking about how difficult it is to come home, do the laundry, do all of this stuff. And I said, well, why don't you get a laundry service? Or, why don't you have somebody come, clean your house maybe, once or twice a month? And she said, Avalaura, I never even thought of
it. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. It's this asking for help, that is like so difficult. I remember when I sort of broke through that barrier of like, oh my God, I get to ask for help. I was actually on a ayahuasca journey and I needed like someone to take me to the bathroom, and I was like, I need help. And my voice was like so small and so weak. And so it was just like, it was such a profound revolution. And whoever helped me to the bathroom was so happy to help me, And like the whole rest of the journey, I was like, oh my God, I get to ask for help.
Wow.
I get to have, I deserve and I'm worthy. And like, it was just so much of this like new, like blossoming of confidence came forward. And I feel like that's a really big piece. And tell me if you're seeing that, especially in these high-powered women that you work with, Avalaura, is just that it didn't even occur, to this particular client, didn't even occur to her. Is that a big thing that you see a lot where it's like there's a low self-worth or a low sense of deserving and then not even a thought to even ask for help?
Yeah, a lot of this book, really talking about self-love and self-care and understanding how they intertwine, right? And I started looking at these women and realizing that a lot of what they were experiencing was low self-love. Like, even though like,
Mm.
yeah, I'm confident and I'm a badass and I may succeed in business and all of these things, but really when you look at their self-love, it is low on the totem pole. And you're absolutely right. You know what? No, I'm not going to ask for help. And or all the times that I've asked for help, nobody helps me. So I'm not going to ask for it anymore. I just have to do everything myself. So now that becomes, I'm not worthy of help. There must be something wrong with me because nobody is helping me when I need it, yet I'm there to help everybody else when they need it.
Right. I
Yeah.
think there's also a block inside of a lot of people in general, but particularly vulva owners of being able to receive help,
Yeah.
right? It's like they might be asking for it and then, they might not be getting it in the form that they wanted or, they have some kind of block inside to actually receiving it. I always say the receptivity is the feminine's greatest superpower. That's what helps us
Mm,
like be magnetic and draw things to us is to really receive the bounty and the beauty and what is coming to us. So turning on that receptive dial and turning it up at certain times can really drop you into your femininity so much quicker. And, one of the little tricks to the trade for turning on that receptivity is using your senses because receptivity is really something that's done in the present moment, right? We don't receive what's coming tomorrow and we can't receive what came yesterday. It's what's happening now. And so our eyes, our nose, our tongue, our ears, these sense organs that we have access to help us drop into that present moment. I'm sure I have a feeling that when you guide your clients through that, they have like profound experiences.
I literally just had a conversation with a client this week about that exact thing because she's so in her head and she's already making up scenarios of what could happen or what will happen instead of actually just being in the moment. And I
Right.
literally
She's
said that. I said,
futurizing.
go outside, take your shoes off, put your feet in the grass, and ground yourself, be in nature, look at all the different colors, right? See what you're smelling. I literally said the same thing. And she was like, you know what? I'm going to do that right now at lunch. Like, because she's so in her head. And you're exactly right. Like the way that you kind of come down into your heart space, into your spirit, is to ground yourself and simply just be in the moment. And that's where the magic happens. Like when you can just be present and you can just intentionally say, this is what I desire, and then allow it to come to you instead of being in your head of, oh my God, this can go wrong, that can go wrong, this can happen, that can happen. You can make up a whole scenario in your head. But when you're in that moment and you're just flowing and you're just intending, that's where the magic happens.
Mm.
I think too, what's sort of interesting is like the shadow side in some of this, like our inability oftentimes to receive. I know for me, it has a lot more to do with my ego and the conditioned response of what the martyr gets. When I
Mm.
refuse help, it's like there's a part of me that goes, see, no one can do it the way I do it. See, all this suffering, if I were to receive, you'd be taking away my suffering, and then who would I be? It's like I have to work this hard because no one else will do it, and I'm the only one who can do it, and woe is me, and woe is me. It's like the story of woe. And I think for a lot of women, especially like in my family, there is a martyr archetype that has gotten passed down to generation to generation. And so
Anybody else have one of those? Raise your hand.
so, like, sometimes it's also breaking through the ego identification of, well, who will I be if I'm not the suffering woman who's refusing the help? It's almost like your help isn't good enough,
Mhm.
And
That's
so
real.
then, like, what will I complain about? Like, who would I be?
How dare I be
Happy?
happy? Right.
That which might lead us to back to the worth. Like, that's like
Yep.
another layer that has to be peeled back to go, well, what does it mean if I don't know who I am?
Yep.
without the
Outside of that.
story, without
Yeah.
being the sacrificer,
The martyr.
the one that puts
Yeah.
everybody else first. So it's
Right.
really kind of interesting how many angles
Yeah.
one can approach this from, which kind of leads me back to how you shifted your work. You went from social
Mhm.
work into becoming an intuitive coach.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, what was lacking in the social work that led you to wanting to help people sort of get more in touch with the spiritualization of all of this?
Yeah. For me, even though when I didn't have a name for it, I was always a healer. And so I was acting from that space, yet I wasn't in spaces that really allowed me to do that, if that makes
Okay.
sense. And
Yeah.
so when I
Right.
decided, like, this is what I'm going to do with my life, because you're supposed to decide at 18 when you go to college, right, what you want to do with your life. I was like, oh, I'm a major in psychology, right? And my mom was like, well, you have to get a PhD. Okay, fine. And I'm like, I didn't know what I was signing up for. But then I decided to go into social work, after talking to a mentor. He's like, you don't need a PhD. You can go into social work. And I get into social work and I'm like, oh, hell, what is this? Like,
Mm.
realizing that I was not going to be able to make the impact that I really wanted to make in social work.
Mhm.
That the system wasn't really set up to help people heal, but it was really to set up to help people maintain their dysfunction. And if I want to
That's
help
so
people
well
really get to
said.
the root,
Wow.
to the
Yeah.
root and to really heal from the inside out, this system does not support that.
Right. It
So
perpetuates it.
it
Right.
perpetuates it and it allows people to stay stuck and independent on the system.
Right.
And I'm trying to help people to be free of the system and external forces and
So
really
what
tap
was
into who they are.
right.
Nice.
Right. What was your turning point? Like, how long were you in social work, and then what happened? And
Yeah.
how did
Was
you
there an
transition?
inflection point
Tell
that
us about the transformation from
Really what
caterpillar
happened
to
is,
butterfly.
yeah, it was really just I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. It's really there was no set thing that happened. It was just a series of things that I kept seeing, and it was me personally declining, not wanting to go to work anymore, gaining weight, realizing that I wasn't happy. I'm a person, I literally laugh every day at everything, at things that are probably totally inappropriate, and I wasn't laughing anymore. It was
Wow.
just like, who is this
Mhm.
person? Um,
Mm.
I
and I
just
was stuck.
imagined like 100 hands going up in the air going, I so relate to that. I'm gaining weight and
Yeah.
I'm not laughing.
Yeah.
Like that is such important
And I
symptoms.
hate, and I don't like going to work. It's like
Oh my
sucking
God.
my soul. I actually
Monday
have
was the
some
worst.
clients. Yeah, I have clients who say that exact same thing. And they're also feeling stuck within the system, like the system also keeps the workers stuck
Yes,
in the system. Yeah.
absolutely. And, for me, and even though I recognized that, I was still stuck because I didn't know where to go for help, which is crazy,
Right.
right? Because here I am helping everybody else,
Helping.
but
There
I
you
didn't know
are.
how to help myself.
Oh,
And I
man.
didn't trust the people that I worked with because it was a very toxic work environment, even though it's supposed to be a healing environment. It
Healing.
was very
Right.
toxic. So who do I go to? Who do I trust? And that was, I was stuck there for a while, and it just got to the point where I didn't care anymore. I was like, listen, I'm just going to talk to somebody because I can't live in this space anymore.
Wow.
And I did. I
Mhm.
finally just talked to one of my colleagues, and she happened to be having a women's retreat, and she said, Avalaura, you got to come. And if she had said, let's go bungee jumping at that point, I would have gone. I would have done
Anything. You're like,
whatever.
I'll try anything
Right.
different.
At this point, whatever she suggested, I would have done it. And this women's retreat literally changed my life.
Wow.
Because it just allowed
Love
me
that.
to be reflective and have that time to be self-aware and to really see what was going on in my life. Because when we're going in the midst of the storm, we don't really pay attention to what's happening. We're just trying to survive.
Right.
Right. And this gave me a moment to see, like, whoa, what is happening to my life? Who am I? What's going on here? And I just had this emotional breakthrough where I just found myself on my hands and knees crying out to God. And I was like, you got to get me out of here. This is not
Wow.
living. I can't do this anymore. I didn't sign up for this crap. Get me out. Like, literally, this is my prayer. Like,
Yeah.
I can't do this.
It's
And
amazing how life brings us to our knees sometimes, and it's exactly what we need.
it was exactly what I needed. I don't, when I think about it, and and I'm sure you all have seen this, I would have stayed. And I
Oh,
can't
yeah?
tell you
course.
how much longer I would have stayed if I didn't have that moment, because
That
I was
pattern
so
interrupt.
concerned about
Yeah.
my clients. I was concerned about my coworkers, my boss,
Right.
all these obligations that I had. Like, I have to take care of these people. They were more
Right.
important than me.
Right.
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 Yeah.
Yeah. So you had the courage to shift, to pivot. What was your
I
next
had the
step when you got back
courage.
from that retreat?
So let me tell you, I can't say that I all had the courage. I had the courage to cry out and ask for help. Like,
Okay.
that's what I had the courage to do.
Right on.
Right?
Right on.
I get back to work on Monday, and my boss called me into his office, and he sits me down and he slides this envelope across the table, and he says, "Avalaura, you have been amazing. You're a wonderful person, but I gotta let you go."
Wow.
Wow.
God answered your prayer.
Listen, a little too fast, and not in the way that I desired, but
Of
clearly
course.
it was what I needed.
And you
that's where
received
I
it.
had that
Wow.
moment of ego versus spirit, right? My ego was
Right.
pissed. I
Mhm.
had never been fired from anything in my life. I was the classic overachiever, recovering
Mhm.
perfectionist. Everything that I did 150%. So I could not
Mm.
believe that this man was firing me.
Wow.
And but my spirit kicked in, was like, "Hey, Laura," and literally that whisper,
It's
"You
quiet.
asked
Yeah.
for this. So what are you gonna do? You asked for this."
Right.
So this is where I had the courage. I took what I call my 6-month healing sabbatical. I
Uh-huh.
took 6
Nice.
months and I did my work. Who am I? Why am I here? Counseling, started studying life coaching, studied Reiki, hypnotherapy, aromatherapy, like any healing art I could get my hands on. And I took 6 months where I really just worked on me.
Beautiful.
And then at the end of that 6 months, that's when I opened up my business and really just said, I want to be the guide that I needed when I was going through, one of the worst things in my life and I didn't know what to do. I need to be that guide for others, because I know that there are other people out there who are struggling, who feel like they've done all of this work on themselves. They reached the mountaintop of success and they're not happy, and something is off and something is wrong and missing. And I got to figure out what that is, because I know that there's more to life than that.
And how did you
Wow.
get going in the direction of like working with celebrities? Because I think you worked with some of the housewives. I never watched the show or anything, but
Don't worry,
But-
plenty of us do.
Yes, exactly. I have to say they're quite entertaining.
and there was some resistance, right, on their side when you came and started to guide and work with some of these celebrities who
Well,
were
so it's sort of interesting. So part of the resistance was me. I was like, I don't know how this is going to look on TV, right? Because if you watch The Housewives, I was on The Real Housewives of Potomac, but there can be fighting going on. There's yelling, screaming. So I didn't know how receptive they would be to my
Right.
help. But it was honestly awesome. I worked with Karen Huger and her husband, which y'all know Karen now. The whole DUI and everything that's going on with that is a whole big controversy. And actually, I worked with her again this season, even though they didn't show it, unfortunately, because now we see the aftermath of what happened. They were wonderful. I think it was really interesting how it was a over 2-hour session, kind of reduced to 2 minutes on the show.
on the show. Yeah.
And there was a lot of valuable information that was not shared, that was
Right.
not put out there. But essentially it was like a lot of couples that I work with, particularly with high achieving women, is that they're not hearing each other. They're not
Yeah.
listening to each other. You need that intermediary to say, okay, listen, this is what she's saying and this is what
Yeah.
he's saying, right? Because there's like this push and pull, and everybody's so set in their heads of what they're used to that they just can't get out of it to actually hear what the other person is saying.
Right, which means you're
Mhm.
misunderstanding each other. And it's so unsatisfying when someone doesn't understand you, because they're ability to really listen and feel you. And then you do it right back to them. It can be really painful. And so I'm curious how you uncover, like, especially from an intuitive perspective, uncover those sexual patterns. We're taking
Mhm.
a look at people's sex lives. How are you helping them reveal that to themselves first, and then, of course, to their partner?
Yeah. A lot of it is when we get to that point. Well, first of all, it's really about creating that safe space because this is, sex and money. Like those are two of the things people do not want to talk about, right? Like they want it,
Right.
but they don't want to talk
Taboo.
about it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
They
kind of
want to hear about it in
crazy.
other people's lives, but that doesn't mean they really
Right.
want anyone else poking around in theirs.
Right.
Exactly. So it really is a vulnerable space. So getting them to that point where they can really be vulnerable and honest. Because a lot of people want to
Uh-huh.
lie, right? They want to
Right.
make
Yeah.
things seem better than they are. Oh, we're having
They're
sex every
lying
day.
to themselves. So
Right.
how
Yeah.
can they be honest with their partner?
Well, and they want to keep up with their social media
Image.
identity.
Yeah.
It's
The
like,
ego
I don't want people
image.
to find out that I feel like I'm a failure at this sector in my
Right.
life. I don't want
Right.
people to know
Yeah.
that. I don't
And I
even
don't
want to
want
know
people
it.
to know that we're in a sexless marriage, right? Like
Right.
that,
Right.
So
I'm too
much pain
tired.
there.
I don't feel like it. I don't want to, whatever it is. And, or he doesn't desire me the way that I feel he should, or the romance is gone. We don't date anymore.
Right.
Like whatever it is,
Right.
like, I don't want to say we're in a sexless marriage. Like, yeah, we're married and we've been married 20 years and everybody thinks it's perfect. And really I'm dying inside.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
I can, that's such a difficult position to be in, especially because all those things you just mentioned, they corrode trust. And how are we going to get naked with somebody and bring our bodies together when we don't even trust each other? Or we don't respect each other anymore because of the obstacles that we have faced that didn't go the way we had hoped or planned. And now it's like, here we have this partnership, but we only are really good partners in a couple of areas. And then we have these other areas that we're kind of ignoring. And, we're embarrassed by them. And then
Yeah.
like trying to fix them just gets harder and harder. So how do you help people have breakthroughs?
Yeah. The
After you
self-awareness.
establish safety.
Yes. Self-awareness is key. It's like you were talking about the martyr syndrome, right? Like you have to know that about yourself first before we can actually deal with the problem. So this poor microphone. So I really have to get them to see themselves, to be self-aware. I could not fully, deal with my problem and ask for help until I realized like, whoa, like this is how bad things have gotten. This is where I am. I hate my job. I don't like my life anymore. I'm not happy. I'm depressed. So getting people to be very self-aware, to really see the gravity of what's going on. And so you now see what's going on, where you are, and then look at, but where do you actually want to be? And then start to see the gap.
Ding, ding,
Mhm.
ding. Where do you
Mhm.
want to be?
And
Who are
where are
you
you
right
getting
now?
stuck?
But who do you want to be? Where are we headed? That is such a powerful piece of inquiry.
It is. And a lot of people, it does not feel good. Right. It does
Right.
not.
Well, because it feels so far away. It feels like where I
Yes.
want to be and where I am, it's an impossible gap. Like there's no way I could get to where I want to be. But it's that first identification of like, well, where do you feel like you're getting stuck now, in this particular moment in time? And you find those little sticky points where you're like, I can't get through this hurdle. And you just one by one, you start to break through. And I feel like, the transformational process, yes, it can take time, but it also can go really quickly. It just
It
depends
can.
on like how much resistance there is inside of a person, right? How attached are we to the martyr archetype or to whatever archetype that we're dealing with that we can finally identify? How much does that bring us safety and how much does that bring us comfort? And are we willing to live outside of that comfort zone? Are we willing to surrender through resistance and find the other side, which is unknown? It's like, I've always been this. I don't know what it means to not be this anymore. It's completely unknown. So the unknown is scary, right? As human beings, we want to know. We want to have a path laid out before us. We want that sense of security. But when you're bringing in what you're bringing in, Avalaura, this like intuitive sense and the the ability to feel and follow your heart and listen to spirit as it's guiding you, sometimes it's going to guide you in a direction that you have no idea what's on the other side of that.
Many
I think
So
times.
there's a deep sense of faith. There's a deep sense of
Yes.
trust that has
Yeah.
to be built and created. And I feel like, I'm working with people a lot who are like, that sounds nice. I'd like to have a deep sense of faith and trust. How do I do that? Give me some tools, give me some steps, because it's not inbred in our culture that we have faith and that we have,
I think that's a
trust.
good and an interesting segue to kind of bring in the intersection between energy work and intimacy.
Mm-hmm. I like
Because
that.
there are some things that I think really can weave into this. It's like you have the experience of, okay, we've sorted out how to make ourselves safe for ourselves and now for our partnership. We've each taken accountability for our parts and the things that didn't necessarily contribute to harmony. And now we can do a pivot towards each other instead of away from each other. We're reestablishing a sense of trust because of personal accountability and personal responsibility. That can be so healing. And now we're starting to get the vision of, okay, this is where we're at now. We've made some shifts. We are starting to become who we want to be. There's more work to do. And I do think it's interesting as we're cultivating intimacy and returning towards love and trust so that we can be really naked with each other, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all those things that make like love so rich when they're there. Like this is where I really imagine like the energy work really starts to come in and starts to make a foundation for a little bit of faith and hope. How do you play with, using Reiki to help people, what is Reiki giving them? How are you using energy work to bring intimacy to folks?
Yeah. The thing that I love about Reiki and energy work is, I always tell my clients, like, listen, I'm the vessel. I don't know what your experience is going to be. These are all the things that could happen. But ultimately, what I know to be the case is that you're going to get the energy that you need right now. And that energy shifts. So a session today could be completely different from a session tomorrow and the next day and the next day. It shifts based on what you need most at this time. And so one is being very intentional, but two is trusting that you'll have the experience that you need most and allowing that to happen, not feeling the need to control. Right? Because control is
that's such a big
piece
one.
of this too.
Yeah.
Right? Feeling
Yeah.
like you have to be in charge of everything. But this is a time to be able to let go and surrender and just allow things to be what they are.
Hallelujah.
This
So that's a
difference
big
between
part.
being a control freak and being a control artist. Control art knows where to set that brush down.
Yeah.
Just allow
Yeah.
the present moment to give them what they need, like you said.
Yeah. And so that's a huge part of the process. And, what I love about energy healing is that it gives you permission to, one, be in the moment, like we talked about, to surrender, but also to feel whatever you feel. Because a
Right.
lot of times during these sessions, feelings come up that you didn't even know that you were having, that you couldn't put into words. And so, we might have a session where we're talking, but you don't even know that this is what's going on with you until now we're doing Reiki and you're like, whoa, what is
Wow.
this that's coming up for me now?
Right.
This
like
is
a wound
all
from
kinds of
childhood. Like
hidden
Yeah.
emotions.
yeah,
and
something
old-
finally got safe enough inside of you that
Mhm.
you allow something that's been suppressed, that's caused you to be numb, suddenly has a place to be cathartically expressed and then let
Released.
go of. I mean, that feels miraculous. When those happen,
That's the magic.
that's the magic,
the magic.
That's the
baby.
magic.
That's the transformation of healing right there. And
isn't it so fun to help to guide people through those moments? I always call
love
it.
it.
It's like giving someone ice cream for the first time. Especially
I love it.
inside of sexuality,
I love it.
Yeah.
like to give people sexual experiences that they've heard about. Maybe they've heard about them, maybe they haven't, but like for them to experience their bodies in new ways that are so expansive and it shows them what they're capable of. And it's just like
that part.
phenomenal to witness.
I'm
It's so
curious,
great.
like along the thread, how much does sexual trauma show up in
Oh,
moments like this? Because I from my own experience, how much sexual trauma can really disrupt intimacy between partners. That
yeah,
unhealed thing, it can come out in so many different forms. Is
so
that something
many.
you see over and over?
I see it a lot. You know, I don't know of any studies, right? So I can't say that this is true or not, but I have seen a lot of type A women have a lot of sexual trauma, if that
Mhm.
It
makes
makes
sense. And
sense.
you know,
It
Totally
like
makes
sense.
sense because they're protecting
yeah,
themselves on some
and
level
that's
from going
also
into a vulnerable state.
Well, yeah, but
and
also you
that's the
you
drive.
compensate.
Yeah,
By
Yeah,
the
if you
drive.
feel broken in one area, you get really good in other areas, so you can compensate this feeling of fucked upness with some
yep.
feeling of greatness.
It is, and it's also I have to protect myself because nobody else will.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So I
Right.
have to have my money, right?
Right.
Right.
I have to be independent because I can't depend on anybody. And
Right.
that then is the driving force. And when you get down to it, you do learn. And it might not be, an outward thing, but it might be a situation where maybe it was date rape, right? Like something that's very sort of what's the word? Not cut and dry. You know what I mean? Where it's kind of
Not
ambiguous.
black and white.
It's
Yeah.
not black and white, but you feel like something wasn't right.
Right.
Something was broken there, but I can't really describe it. And so because it's not black and white, I don't really know how to define it for myself. So I kind of just
Right.
dismiss it and write it off as not being important,
Right.
right?
Uh-huh.
Instead of
I think that happens
intuitionally
so often,
so often, and we
like all the
don't talk
time.
about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I think statistically it's 1 in 3 women goes through rape or sexual trauma in their life, and 1 in 4 men, I believe. But I don't think these are included. So I think it's actually more like 2 in 3, these sort of like gray area trauma, transgressions, rapes, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, because there's women,
Right. Or just
they're like,
feeling
I didn't.
used, abused, or misused.
Oh,
Whatever
listen, that's
whatever
a
form that
whole
takes.
Right.
that's a
Right.
whole other thing, especially in these dating streets right now. Um,
Yeah.
but
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I didn't know he was in a relationship where he was married, and we were in a whole relationship, and I gave myself to him, and then to find out I was the side chick. I mean,
Right.
Right.
Right. Right. I think just feeling used is a really interesting, it sums up so many of our experiences, whether it was traumatic. I mean, it's traumatic in any sense, right? Big T, little t, that's all subjective. But I think that's really a common thread that a lot of women have experienced in
yeah,
their life. And so then we're very guarded around letting that happen to us again. And then there comes that theme of receiving. It's like we're coming full circle back on allowing others to support us in a genuine way that we can really believe them. And one of the things Willow and I always say is that a lot of trust issues, we think it's outside of us. That it's like, it's because I need to trust you. But really, when you take a closer look, it's what don't I trust in me? I don't
yeah,
trust that I'm a good picker. I don't trust that I will be loved. I don't trust that I'm lovable. I don't trust that I'm worthy. I don't trust that I'll be able to not make the same mistake over and over and over again. And so much of that inner working is in trust is like, how can I heal that I will still make mistakes, but I'll trust I'll be okay?
mhm,
Which kind of also sums it up. It's like, I can trust I'll be okay no matter what happens.
no matter
And
what.
that belief
Yeah.
offers so much fucking freedom to be more in the present moment, living more authentically. I'm really curious how sexual empowerment translates. It's like there's something about becoming empowered sexually that ends up affecting other sectors of our life. And it
Absolutely.
sounds like those two really go hand in hand in your work between women feeling professionally successful
Mhm.
when they feel sexually successful. Or would you put those words together?
I mean, we're holistic beings, right? And so they all things operate together, in the circle. And, one of the things that I do, like when I'm working with my clients, is we identify the areas that are out of alignment. right? Because if any area is out of alignment, we're out of alignment, right?
Right.
And a lot of times, again, you'll see the correlations, right? And if we look at our sexuality when we're most vulnerable, whatever that sexuality looks like to you, right? We're in our most vulnerable state, literally. So your ability to be vulnerable affects every other area of your life. If you can be vulnerable sexually, if you can ask for what you want sexually, if you know how to please yourself sexually, right? If you trust yourself to be naked and to see yourself fully, if you can do those things, then you're going to show up differently in your life, in the workplace, in your relationships, in your family. It's just like the woman who has on a beautiful lingerie set or bra and panties right underneath her clothes, and she's the only one who knows she has it. So she shows up differently because she feels sexy on the inside. Right now, people are looking at you like, something's different. Did you cut your hair? Like, did you lose weight? Like, there's something going on with you. They feel it. They sense it, even if they don't know what it is, because you're showing up differently. You're tapped into these areas in your life that are now lit up that before they were dead.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It's like opening from the root and the second chakra up, right?
Right.
All the other sectors, all the other chakras of life start to transform and change. I always like to say, watching somebody have a sexual awakening and an infusion of that, an integration of that into their lives, it's like watching a plant that hasn't been watered in a week and a half start to get watered, and it starts to grow, and it leaves expand and spread. And yeah, you can really see a visible difference. There are certain things in our life, like when we're getting, if we're depleted of them, they cause detriment to our health. And sexuality, I feel like, is such an important part of our health that is so easy to sweep under the rug. Oh, I don't have the energy. Oh, I don't really have a partner. It's fine. I don't need to self-pleasure. I don't have the time, whatever. And it's this part of our health that when we do pay attention to it, we do water that plant, it waters us back, and everything else starts to change.
I love it. Does water us back. Yeah, when we do water that part of our soul, this juiciness, we have access to the juiciness. What a surprise. Well said, both of you. I really love that. Now I know you have a 5-minute practice that is really transformative. And it sounds like when your high achieving clients, do this practice, that they not only transform their sex life, but it actually really transforms their income within a few months of implementing it. Can you say something about this practice of yours?
Yeah, a lot of what we talk about, it's so funny how all these things intersect. I talk a lot about manifestation, right? And they all work together. So we're talking about sexuality, we're talking about intimacy, we're talking about vulnerability, right? We're talking about being in the moment. All of these things too also help you to manifest, right? It helps you to be more intentional. It helps you to be very clear about what are the things that you really want in life, not the things that people tell you you're supposed to want, or not the things that you've been working towards that you think you're supposed to want, but what you actually truly in your heart, in your body desire, right? So that level of clarity and that level of intention and that level of being in the moment and being vulnerable now opens you up to really get the things that you want out of life. So like I said, I was on this retreat. I was present in this moment. I had this emotional breakthrough, and immediately afterward, literally can't make this up, I get fired from my job. I get relief, right? So now I have the freedom to be on the path that I really want to be on.
Yeah.
It took all of those things for it to happen.
Right.
And so how did you come into intuitive alignment? What was it? I mean, it sounds like you got into alignment because you got real and a prayer was answered.
Yeah.
And so is there something that you give your clients that helps them reorganize their own intuitive alignment?
Yeah. A lot of that is when we're doing the ego versus spirit work, then you identify how ego shows up. how do you identify how spirit shows up? How often
So
are you
important.
operating in ego? How often are you operating in spirit? And really doing that assessment, and then looking at the gap. And then, okay, what were the moments that something clicked for you and then you didn't listen? And what was the outcome? Right?
Right.
So when we're looking at that, then we can kind of trace back and look at, okay, now what if you have that moment again? What could the outcome be if you listen? Right. And
I
so
love
it's a
that.
lot of that work, tracing back and
Yeah.
looking at those moments. And then people start to see like, wow, because a lot of us think we're not intuitive. And we
Right.
really
I don't
are.
know
We
why
just,
that is.
because we don't listen. And
Right.
nobody taught us how to really pay attention and honor our intuition, right? Like our feelings feel like there's something that they're nagging us. Like how many women are like, oh my God, anger, I shouldn't feel this way, or I hate feeling sad. And I'm like, don't you
Right.
realize your feelings are your intuitive messages? Like
Yeah.
your feelings are carrying information that you need. And if
Right.
you listen to that information, here's the outcome that you can have in your life. But if you continue to dismiss, deny, act like it doesn't exist, just reject it, this is the other pattern that's going to continue to happen in your life. And so a
Right.
lot of us, we don't know how to handle it. And so we just dismiss it and we think it's not important, or it's something that I don't want to deal with. And so we're disempowering ourselves. We're shrinking ourselves, and we
Yeah.
don't know how to get out of it because we don't want to feel.
I'm so glad you're bringing this
Well said.
to our audience because, I feel like Leah and I have been on the path of following our intuition for so long. I forget that people don't do it, right? I forget that that so many people don't believe that they have intuitive powers, or
Well,
that they
yeah.
can. So it's so great to, pull it back and share with people what's possible when you start to listen to your emotions rather than override, negate, sweeping them under the rug, and just spiritually bypass what's actually really going on, like to really feel what is the emotion inside of your body.
Yeah.
Like
So
we
many
talk
people
about
don't
people
know
I was supposed to we talk about
gaslight.
people gaslighting us, but we gaslight ourselves every
Gaslight
day.
ourselves.
Totally.
Yeah.
We're probably
Yeah.
better at gaslighting ourselves than anyone is at
Oh, for
gaslighting
sure.
us.
Yeah,
And I
totally.
think it's because it hasn't been modeled. Where do you find inner guidance? What does it
Right.
feel like in your body? And then
Right.
here's the measurement when you look at the outcomes. What
Yeah.
happens when you believe the ego? What happens when you're guided by alignment? That inner guidance comes back again where you're connected to spirit and soul. And then what are the outcomes of that? How do you feel them both in your body differently? So you can begin to trust from embodiment standpoint where the sensations live in your system. And then the more you observe them, the more you measure them, the more you trust them. And we don't have a lot of language for that. And so I'm sure if you're listening right now, you could probably use a session with Avalaura to help you track yourself, to have a place to be able to hear yourself say the things you need to hear out loud, and then have that reflected to you so you can start to sort out your own inner guidance. Because I think the thing that's really beautiful about coaching that is different from therapy is having someone be able to ask you powerful questions so that the answer you're seeking comes from you. It's not advice necessarily given from a therapist who's giving you like, here are the next steps. It's you're discovering for yourself what those steps are. And when that comes from the inside, the likelihood of you following through is like 10 times greater.
And
than
I
you
just
trying
want to
to
say,
take someone's
to be fair
advice.
to therapists, many therapists also do pull
Well,
it
a
out
lot
of their
of therapists
clients
do
as well.
coaching now, like there is a bridge.
Right.
They're
that
starting
they
to.
also have
Yes,
powerful
I work
questions.
with a lot of therapists, and they
Yeah.
are starting to do that.
Yeah.
They're also starting to embrace energy work as well.
Which is
So when I
so
teach, when I
fantastic.
teach Reiki, a lot of my students are therapists or mental health
Oh,
professionals now,
great.
Yeah,
which
I
is
believe it.
awesome. But I think it's because they know they do. Like people are looking for this, and traditional mental health no longer works. I don't think it ever did work. It just
Right.
that's what we had. And now
Yeah.
we're recognizing we have these options and we need to utilize them because,
Yeah.
if you want someone to really be whole, you have to operate from that space of wholeness, not this one part of ourselves.
Well,
Mhm.
every healing program I've done or certification I've done, half the group is therapists. These are not, most therapists are asking themselves really good questions. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
always in good company. But I do think it's interesting when we take a look at the things that make coaching different from
Yeah.
therapy. It's a lot of times it's those powerful questions.
Yeah.
And it's the
And I think,
process.
and the
Right.
process.
It's the
Yeah.
Yeah.
process. Yeah. I
So
always
I
tell
know
my
you
clients I
have,
have tools.
right, right. And I think it's a great hybrid, both therapy and coaching coming
Yeah.
together. So I understand you have a free gift for our audience, which is a self-care audit.
Yeah.
We'll have a link
Mm.
in the show notes for that. What can you say a little bit about the self-care audit?
Again, so much of our journey is awareness or lack of awareness, right? And so sometimes when we're thinking about, we don't recognize how we're not taking care of ourselves, right? Because we have this limited view of what self-care looks like. We have a very limited view of what self-love looks like. So I can have a client, oh, I love myself. And then we're talking and all of their actions demonstrate that they don't love themselves, right?
Mm,
Or they're not actually taking care of themselves. And so this self-care audit allows you to see all the different ways that self-care shows up, and you get to answer some questions, right? You get to answer some powerful questions, right? And see how you're actually doing with your self-care.
cool.
What a fun thing. I want to try it.
Yeah. So
I want to see how I'm doing. I think I'm doing really good, but maybe there's some shadows that I don't see.
we're all, chances are we all got them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else you would like our audience to know before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I love this conversation. It was powerful. We talked about a lot, right? And so I absolutely think you can watch this and listen to this again and again and again. And, what I say is I think that everything is really about not just receiving, but then actually what are you going to do, right?
Right.
So don't get overwhelmed by what you heard, but whatever resonated with you, take action, right? Do
Mhm.
something about it. Take that next step.
Great
Because it
advice.
resonated with you for a reason. And so, I'm all about empowerment and saying, do something, even if it's just one little thing, just do something to take that next step to where you want to be.
Cool.
Absolutely. Great advice. Such a pleasure to have you, Avalaura. I'm so glad we got to meet with you today and share your wisdom and beauty with our audience. If you all have just been listening, I highly recommend you go to YouTube and look at this beautiful goddess of a woman and just behold her radiance, because
Yeah.
she clearly is walking her talk and being an embodiment of what she teaches in the world.
Yeah, so you can see Avalaura on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube. Her website is avalaura.com. Thanks for being on the show. For the rest of you still, tune in, turn on, and fall in love with more of Leah and Willow, because the dish is coming right up.
Now, our favorite part, the dish.
What a gorgeous woman. I just love her presence.
I love her name too, Avalaura.
Avalaura. I've never
Yeah.
heard it. It's such
And
a great name.
it's a great little Ava-Laura combo.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I really love how she brought some of the concepts that we were discussing and brought it back to like the soul level, brought it back to like, it's not so much a cookie cutter process, one size fits all. This is how you reach success in 5 steps. It's really about going to the soul of each individual
Mhm.
and helping them unpack. And it's like seeing through the curtain. Here's all the things you haven't been seeing clearly
Mhm.
that are an opportunity for you to course correct.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that, like the population that she's working with. And also I was saying this to her right when we stopped recording, like being on the East Coast and bringing this sort of more intuitive and kind of what we might call woo-woo, Reiki and things like that to a population that wouldn't otherwise be awakened or aware of the potentials that they hold inside of themselves.
See, that's pretty alive on the East Coast. I think where it's less alive is the center of the country.
For
It's
sure.
your
That's
Iowas and your
definitely
Idahos and
true.
your Nebraskas and,
Yeah, that's
probably
definitely true.
Mississippi and Arkansas. I think it's a little more like coast to coast,
Oh, yeah.
you
More
know?
progressive, of
Yeah, a little more
course.
progressive.
Yeah.
And DC is very progressive. So yeah, interesting, right? And then we all have our pockets, even in California. I was just talking to Charles and Christy. Were here last night for dinner, and Judith was in town, and Judith was asking, so is Sacramento, pretty conservative? And we're all like, yeah, I think so. I think there might be a few pockets that are more liberal. But, I just feel like everything is such a weird soup right now because of all the politics. And
Right.
it feels like, I don't know, everything
Yeah.
just feels kind of wonky. I don't know
Yeah.
what to believe anywhere I look. Oh, be honest. I don't even know what I believe half the time when I look. That's probably the bigger problem.
Yeah,
I'm
I
kind
mean,
of like,
anywhere you go, you're gonna find, the full spectrum
well, that's why I
of
guess I think
consciousness.
assumptions are dangerous,
Mhm.
because how can we know if we're not living there ourselves? And
Yeah.
even then, back to the point, what do I know about
What
even
do
where
I
I
know?
live?
Yeah. What do I believe? Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, her work, I think, with high level, like young, I want to keep wanting to say young, living people who are really in
And I wonder what a good
CEO.
word is other than young that people would recognize, because I often use the word masculine to interchange that to give people,
Yeah.
because not everyone listening knows
Well,
what
I
yin and
also
yang is.
then I
And
often will
they
say
might know what
like
yang is, but they don't even know what yang is, because the proper pronunciation is yang, but most
young,
people are going to
not
say yang.
yang.
Every time you say young, there's a part of me that goes, "Oh God, does anyone know what the
Oh, like tantra, tantra, tantra,
tantra?"
tantra. Potato. But yeah, I mean, just people who are high achievers, we'll call
Yeah,
it that. High
yeah,
achievers.
yeah.
Yeah. Who, on the outside, on the exterior, have it all together, quote unquote. And then on the
Yeah.
inside might be really breaking down because they're so accustomed to overriding what's going on the inside in order to achieve. And I think that's such an important, that population has resource, right? Has
Right.
connections,
Good point.
has a lot that they could offer the world if they can really find inside of themselves the energy, right? That
Yeah.
like the truth and the wow, if I really come to my truth and I am honest with myself, it really changes the whole world around me. It changes my life. So if I could bring that to others, I think that's one of the cool things about this work is like when you find it for yourself, all you want to do is share it with others,
Totally.
because it's so magical.
Totally. I was interested when she was talking about the housewives. I was like, oh, I
Uh-huh.
haven't really gotten into Potomac. Potomac.
What's Potomac? I don't watch anything.
Okay, so like there's the Housewives of New Jersey. This is a Bravo
Okay.
show.
Okay.
There's the Housewives of New York, the Housewives of Beverly Hills, the
Okay.
Housewives of Orange County, Housewives of Miami. They've done these different. Now there's the Housewives of Salt Lake, and then there's the Housewives of Potomac. Those are two of the cities I haven't gotten into because I stopped paying for cable, and like everybody else, I just do I subscribe to Netflix and whatever. And Bravo hasn't always had all their shows on all of those subscriber networks. I think they mostly have it on Hulu anyways. So I haven't watched it. So it's like if she had said the Housewives of New Jersey, I'd be able to, I know all the characters. But I don't know Potomac girls, and now I want to watch it. I want the juice. I want the gossip on, okay, what about this girl and the DUI and everything else?
Oh my gosh, hilarious.
So funny how that kind of hooks you.
I know our brains do like drama.
We
They
do.
really do.
Yes, we like the gossip.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, I can tell she's a real deal kind of coach. So
Yeah.
hopefully you will take her audit and you'll learn something about yourself that you can really integrate and utilize and make some shifts.
Yeah. More
check it out.
self-love for the
Yeah.
win.
All right. I know you're traveling today, so have a great trip. And
Thank you.
love, love, love to everyone out there.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in. This episode was hosted by Tantric Sex Master Coach and Positive Psychology Facilitator Leah Piper, as well as by Chinese and Functional Medicine Doctor and Taoist Sexology Teacher Dr. Willow Brown. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.